Good morning, my fellow Canadians. Well, if you thought by chance that Mark Carney's ascent to Prime Minister signaled change, that maybe, just maybe, the adults were finally back at the table, think again. Because what we've seen in just last week, from gun control to drug policy to immigration chaos, isn't a return to sanity. It's a rebranding of the exact same incompetence, the same arrogance, the same elite contempt for working Canadians dressed up with a new voice, a new tie, and the same globalist talking points. Let's get into it. Well, last Thursday in Ottawa, Raquel Dancho, Conservative MP from Manitoba, she challenged this Liberal government. She exposed that a sitting Liberal minister, handpicked by Justin Trudeau's replacement, Mark Carney, has a documented history of psychological abuse and workplace harassment. And we're not talking about anonymous rumors. We're talking about an independent investigation by a law firm commissioned by a public institution. Their findings: this minister, now in charge of governing Canadians, created an environment so toxic it was described as psychological warfare. Staff fled, reputations were destroyed, and the Liberals, they promoted her. Dancho laid it out with the clarity of a hammer hitting glass.
In St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, we learned some disturbing news today. A Liberal cabinet minister from Manitoba has been found to have a serious history of harassment and unprofessional conduct in the workplace. A former subordinate said they endured humiliation, intimidation, and months of psychological warfare by this minister in her previous job. This is obviously completely unacceptable and unworthy of a minister of the Crown. The Prime Minister decides who sits around the cabinet table. So was he unaware of this disturbing history of workplace abuse, or did he know and just didn't care?
So Dancho asks the only question that matters. Did the Prime Minister know, or did he just not care? And what did she get in return?
Mr. Speaker, my colleague is obviously committed to fostering a healthy work environment for everyone in the workplace, characterized by collegiality and mutual respect, and that's what we have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Merely mouth dodge from the Liberal House Leader, Steve McKinnon. He didn't deny it. He didn't defend the victim. He offered empty platitudes and cliches about respect. It was insulting. It was cowardly. It was exactly what you expect from this party that treats accountability like a dirty word. Let's be blunt. If a Conservative minister had a record like this, the CBC would set up camps on their lawn. There'd be emergency panels about systemic abuse. But when it's a Liberal, the story gets memory hold and the victim forgotten. This isn't just hypocrisy. It's a declaration the rules don't apply to them. They'll lecture you about safe workplaces while elevating abusers. They'll preach feminism while silencing women who come forward. This is the Liberal Party. That's Trudeau's legacy. This is Carney's crew. And last Thursday, Raquel Dancho ripped the mask off. And for a brief flickering moment, the truth was on record. And they couldn't handle it. And if you think this is just a one-off thing, it's not. And I'll point you to another minister. And let me ask you a question. Would you trust a surgeon if he admitted he'd never heard of a scalpel? Probably not. Now, would you trust your public safety minister if he didn't know what an RPAL was? Well, in Canada, under the new Liberal regime, the answer is you better, because it's exactly the situation unfolding right now in Parliament. This week, Conservative MP Andrew Lawton, one of the few adults left in the room, one of the actual adults in the room, stood up in the committee and asked a very basic question to the public safety minister.
Member.
Does the minister have an RPAL?
Minister.
Can you repeat that question?
Member.
I'll rephrase, Chair. Does the minister know what an RPAL is?
Minister.
I do not.
Member.
Minister. For you, those at home that don't know what that is, that's the restricted possession and acquisition license, the license required for handguns and certain rifles in Canada. It's like asking the finance minister what a T4 is and getting a blank stare. Then Lawton followed up.
Does the minister know what the CFSC is?
Minister.
I do not know.
Member.
I'll stipulate, Chair, that is the Canadian's firearm safety course that all gun owners in Canada have to do to get their firearms license. Has the minister ever done the Canadian firearm safety course?
Minister.
Speaker, it's my third week on the job. No, I have not.
Excuse me? 3 weeks? You've been appointed to one of the most consequential roles in public safety, responsible for gun legislation, enforcement, even confiscation. and you haven't even read the manual? You don't even know what the basic licensing terms the tens of thousands of ordinary Canadians do. And yet this government thinks it's qualified to ban your firearms, seize your property, and demonize you as a public threat. This isn't just ignorance. This is ideological arrogance. A regime so drunk on power, it doesn't even feel the need to understand the people it governs. In fact, it delights in not knowing. Because remember, the liberal crusade against lawful gun owners isn't based on logic. It's not about crime. It's about control. These people aren't interested in reality. They're just interested in optics, fear, and votes. And if that means appointing a public safety minister who doesn't know the first goddamn thing about public or safety, well, that's just par for the course on Trudeau's leftover swamp. Andrew Lawton exposed the whole charade in less than 5 minutes. And the Liberal minister, he was sat there, he blinking, not even embarrassed. This is your government, Canada, and it's an absolute joke. And it gets worse. Not only does this public safety minister have no idea what an RPALD is, he can't even give Canadians a straight answer about how much money he's spending to take your property. Andrew Lawton asked,
how much has the Liberal government spent so far on the confiscation scheme?
Well, Minister.
Total amount budgeted in total is $597.9 million over 3 years.
Member.
The question was how much has been spent to date.
Minister. Honourable member.
The government's own numbers in September of last year said it was $67.2 million. How has the amount gone down in the intervening months?
Well, Minister.
So it's $20 million for the first phase of the business buyback. More will be allocated and is allocated towards the individual gun owner.
Chair, my question, how much has been spent in total by the government between May 1st, 2020 and now?
Honourable Minister.
$20 million.
Honourable member.
How has the number gotten $50 million smaller than in September of 2024?
Goes towards administration and setting up the program, but the buyback itself is $20 million that's been spent.
Honourable member.
So the minister is giving a number that's deliberately deflated?
Honourable Minister.
Is a member accusing me of misleading? I don't think he is, but no, I am giving numbers that are accurate. $20 million.
The Honourable member.
I was asking for the total, but...
Eventually, after dodging, mumbling, and some bureaucratic throat clearing, the minister spits out a lowball number, 20 million. Sounds clean, sounds small, but it's deliberately misleading because even the government's own report from September says the cost at that time was 67.2 million. So how exactly does it magically drop to 47? What did Canadians get in return? Did the Liberal government issue refunds, cancel contracts? Of course not. They just moved the goalposts. This minister carved up the spending into categories. Administrative here, logistics there, trying to make the actual confiscation part look cheaper. Why? Because they know how insane this program looks to the average Canadian. Let's be clear. This isn't just a math error. It's an information operation. They're massaging the numbers to downplay the true cost of a program that doesn't reduce crime, punishes legal gun owners, and hasn't even seized the majority of guns it targets. In fact, Lawton asked how many firearms has been confiscated under the program so far. The answer? Crickets. They couldn't even give a number or a cost per firearm. They just said, we'll get back to you. Translation, they don't know, or more likely, they don't want you to know. Because if Canadians knew the truth, if they saw the billions wasted, the constitutional rights trampled, the bureaucrats pulling the strings, they'd shut this program down tomorrow. So instead they lie, softly, politely, bureaucratically. And if you dare call it out, you're accused of misleading. No, Minister, the only people being misled here are us. And just when you thought it couldn't get more insane, enter Aaron Gunn, a no-nonsense Conservative MP from British Columbia. He's stepping up to the same clueless public safety minister, and what unfolds is something you couldn't script better if you tried. Gunn lays this out simply, and he lays out the horrifying facts. In his community, Campbell River, 3,500 fentanyl tablets were seized. Not in a back alley, not in some cartel warehouse, but from traffickers using federally funded safe supply drugs. That's right. These lethal opioids weren't smuggled from China. They were paid out for by you. So what does the minister do? At first, he does the usual, the obligatory thoughts and prayers, and we need to take this more seriously routine. But Gunn isn't having any of it. He fires back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my home of Campbell River, Mr. Chair, 3,500 tablets of a deadly and addictive opioid that were being trafficked were seized by the RCMP. Does the minister believe in strong sentences for distributing, funding, and profiting off of these deadly and addictive drugs?
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, fentanyl and other opioids impact communities across Canada, and my sympathies to the people of Campbell River. We do need to ensure that there's strict penalties for those who commit these crimes.
Member.
Well, that sounded good, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, these deadly and addictive opioids are actually part of the government's very own so-called safe supply program. They're actually being distributed and funded by the minister's own government. So if he is claiming that he's going to have stiff sentences, if they're going to crack down on the sources of these addictive drugs, who exactly is the minister planning to crack down on? Themselves?
The Honourable Minister.
And suddenly, the Minister of Public Safety, the man alleged tasked with protecting Canadian lives, shrinks behind the usual Liberal curtains.
I understand, Mr. Speaker, this is a program that was administered by the province of British Columbia.
So the federal government funds a policy to flood communities with government-issued hard drugs, and when the bodies pile up, it suddenly becomes someone else's fault. Got it. But it gets worse. Gunn presses him directly.
The Honourable Member.
Mr. Chair, does the minister deny that the federal government helped fund this program, Mr. Chair?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we as Canadians, as governments, we need to do everything in our powers to ensure that people are...
The Honourable Member.
Mr. Chair, the minister, the fact of the matter is the federal government funded this so-called safe supply program that has now ended up in the hands of drug dealers and drug traffickers, resulting in the seizure that I just mentioned. Does the minister regret and apologize for funding these programs?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in the 3 weeks since I've been appointed, I've been working on a bill, Bill C-2, that will ensure that we continue to fight fentanyl at our borders.
Honourable Member.
Mr. Chair, does the Minister of Public Safety believe the Liberal government's experiment to decriminalize hard drugs, including fentanyl, crack cocaine, and crystal meth, has been a success in my home province of British Columbia?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that is factually incorrect. This government decriminalized cannabis and did not go beyond that.
Honourable Member.
Mr. Chair, can I just get some clarification from the minister that he is saying that this government did not decriminalize fentanyl, crystal meth, and crack cocaine in my home province of British Columbia?
The Honourable Minister.
No, Mr. Speaker. It happened as part of a request by the British Columbia government for a short period of time.
They've denied that.
Mr. Chair, the minister must know that the policy of decriminalizing these hard drugs still exists. It's set to expire in January of 2026. Will the minister commit to ending this failed policy once and for all?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we look forward to working with our provincial and territorial counterparts to ensure that there is no hard drugs available within their respective jurisdictions.
Member.
Mr. Chair, under the Liberal drug decriminalization policy that actually exists right now for fentanyl, crystal meth, and crack cocaine, drug dealers are allowed to store more than 1,000 lethal doses of fentanyl in their homes. Does the minister believe that this policy makes Canadians safer?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a question that should be addressed to the Minister of Health.
The Honourable Member.
Addressed to the Minister of Health, Mr. Chair, frontline RCMP officers have told me decriminalization ties their hands behind their backs and makes it easier for drug dealers and drug traffickers to push their illegal and addictive substances. Does he not agree with these frontline RCMP officers?
The Minister.
Speaker, this is a question that should be posed to the police of jurisdiction in British Columbia.
Member.
Mr. Chair, ultimately, does the minister agree that this is a matter of federal jurisdiction? This is the criminal code, does he not? And ultimately, therefore, it is his government's decision and his government's responsibility.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a committee of the whole to address issues around my portfolio, which is public safety, issues relating to health, and I suggest that this question be posed to health.
10-second question, 10-second answer.
Mr. Chair, does the minister believe that someone who's high on crystal meth wandering the streets of downtown Vancouver or Toronto poses a risk to public safety?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, this is something that should be addressed to the Minister of Health.
Very brief. 2 seconds.
Same question, yes or no. Someone high on crystal meth, an issue of public safety, yes or no?
The Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that should be addressed to the Minister of Health.
And what does the minister say? He refuses to answer. He punts it to the health minister. He punts it to BC Police. He punts it to anyone but himself, to this Liberal government. Because if he says yes, he admits this government enabled it. If he says no, he proves he has no grip on reality. This is the Liberal playbook. Fund the disaster, blame the provinces, dodge the consequences, smear anyone who calls it out. And it's failing Canadians in real time. Communities are drowning in fentanyl. Law-abiding citizens are being disarmed, and this Minister of Public Safety, he doesn't know what a firearms license is, won't acknowledge his own government's drug policy, and he can't even say that meth heads roaming the streets are a danger to the public. And if you thought this circus stopped at gun bans, workplace abuse, and drug decriminalization, think again, because this week, Michelle Garner stood up in Parliament and demanded something dangerous from the Liberal government, a straight answer. She asked why, in the middle of a catastrophic housing crisis and a youth joblessness, the Liberal government issued 500,000 international study permits. That's 500,000 in a single year. That's the population of Halifax, suddenly competing with Canadians for jobs, housing, and healthcare. The immigration's answer? That's misinformation. What? The number comes from the minister's own website. Rempel says so on the floor.
Speaker, the Liberals promised to cap foreign study permits, which also allow people to work in Canada. But new data shows that the Liberals blew their cap out of the water by handing out a whopping 500,000 foreign study permits last year, roughly the same population as all of Halifax. Why did the Liberals bring 500,000 foreign students to Canada during a massive housing shortage and while youth in Canada can't find jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for that question. Those figures are inaccurate. It's misinformation. This new government is hard at work to improve our immigration system, and the introduction of Bill C-2 Tuesday was an example of that.
So I got those numbers from the minister's website. I went on the website and I read them. So in the middle of a housing crisis, she brought 500,000 people to Canada. These people compete with Canadians for jobs, require housing and healthcare. If her department's numbers aren't the real numbers, what are the real numbers?
Mr. Speaker, let me give the opposite member a lesson on immigration and on numbers and on permits of visa. There's many applications and many individuals. We recognize that to balance our immigration and to have a good country, we need temporary and we need permanent residence. Some applicants have multiple numbers, and so therefore I would suggest that we look into those numbers a little bit more in detail. Thank you.
Ah, yes, the classic Liberal move. Not only do they avoid answering questions, they smugly suggest you're too stupid to understand it. Then she rolls out the bureaucratic sleight of hand. Some applicants have multiple numbers. There are many individuals and many applications. We need to balance temporary and permanent residence. Translation: we cook the books, and if you don't like the numbers, it's because you don't understand the system. But here's the reality. These 500,000 foreign students are legally allowed to work. They're required housing in a market where Canadians are already being crushed. They strain public services, all while young Canadians can't find jobs, can't afford rent, and can't get basic access to healthcare. They're still living in their parents' basement. And let's be clear, this isn't immigration policy. It's state-sponsored supply and demand sabotage, flooding the job and housing market and then gaslighting Canadians when they ask, why is everything unaffordable? It also seems like the same scam we saw with the ArriveCan app. The numbers don't make sense. The story changes weekly. And if you point it out, you get told you're misinformed, uneducated, or worse, xenophobic. But the facts don't lie. This isn't about welcoming students. This is about papering over economic mismanagement with mass migration and then blaming you for noticing. The Liberal regime doesn't want answers. They want obedience. And when someone like Michelle Rempel-Garner shows up with the facts, they try to teach her lessons. The arrogance is unbelievable. The damage is undeniable. And the incompetence, it's absolutely radioactive. And let's stop pretending this is some kind of new era. These ministers, from the public safety minister who's never heard of an RPAL, to the immigration minister who thinks 500,000 foreign permits is a rounding error. These are not agents of change. They're products of the same decaying liberal swamp that's been rotting this country from the inside out. They can't answer basic questions. They can't do basic math. They don't understand the laws they're enforcing, the programs they're pushing, or the suffering they've created. And yet they sit here, arrogant, unaccountable, and insulated, while Canadians suffer. Not elites, you. You can't afford rent because international students are driving up demand in every major city. You can't find work while wages are suppressed by mass temporary migration. You, who followed the rules, paid your taxes, took the CFSC, got your RPAL, and now find yourself on the wrong end of a government gun ban run by someone who doesn't even know what the acronyms mean. And now, after Trudeau burns the house down, slips out the back door, we're told that Mark Carney, the globalist banker, the WEF darling, the Prince of Davos, is going to fix it? No. He's not change. He's the signal that nothing will change. Carney is